Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another video covering the Shadow Online Gaming Winter Tournament. This time around it is the third and fourth match that I played in the 5 group stage games. And this first one on the Shrine of Cain, we are playing as the Tomb Kings against the Force of Chaos. So faction I don't really play very often against Loremaster of Sotek, playing Chaos, who according to his own admission doesn't play Chaos very often. So we kind of went into this not entirely knowing what we wanted to run. And I didn't really want to, one, you can't run monster spam armies in the tourneys. You can at max bring 3, but 2, I didn't really want to bring a monster spam army. I wanted to try to go wide and experiment with a build I've had some on and off success with against Chaos in the past, and that was a very archer-centric build. So going over things real quick, we do have Citra the Imperishable for my Lord, and also doubling as the only caster. And normally I do try to bring Lore of Life, or Light, not Life, Light, but for the net, but I decided to opt out of that here and instead roll with just Citra. And he does have the Crown of Nekara for that AoE damage buff, which is really useful, of course, for these Tomb Princes. He does have my Will Be Done for that, or Unyielding Will, which is +5 melee attack and defense. It's upgraded my Will Be Done. Joff's Incantation of Cursed Blades, Nair's Incantation of Protection, Blessed Blade of Tra, and the Wrath of Tra. So a whole selection of abilities and slew of abilities to really dish out the hurt. Alongside him, 2 Tomb Princes, each of whom has the Blade of Setep, as well as Tomb Strike and Curse of Joff, and of course one of them does have Guardian, not both, but one does, so as to help keep Citra a little better alive. Alongside them we do have Bone Giant over here on the flank, looking to chip away. Had my opponent brought, say, a Hellcan, and I really wanted to have something to shut that down, but also to whittle down, say, units like Summoners of Rage, or Dragon Ogres, or units like that, before the lines met. For a front line, a bunch of dirt cheap chaff, 2 skeleton warriors, 2 skeleton spears. On the periphery, we do have the skeleton King Nakesh Scorpion Legion on one end, skeleton spears on either. Outside of that, then 4 units of skeleton archers, as well as the Blasted Legion of Demonetization here in the center. Now, for my opponent, he did decide to roll with good old Archaon, the now more and more often chosen. So this last patch has done wonders for Chaos's Lord selection, and it was actually something we were discussing right before playing this match. But Archaon, with the new AP values that he has, is an absolute beast, and you can see here with Slayer of Kings ready, he's going to be a monster to deal with. He's got Foe Seeker, he's got Stand or Die, he's got Flaming Sword of Ruin, Cascading Firecloak, both cheap but efficient options in my opinion. Crown of Domination to prevent easy tear routes, and then of course Kindle Flame. So that's going to be pretty monstrous, especially because unfortunately Tomb King Lords and Heroes have a fire weakness. So you can see 25% weakness there. With Kindle Flame, you can drop that down to 47% weakness. And then if he's got Slayer of Kings, it's going to be brutal. Outside of that, he does have Chaos Warhounds as well as Chaos Knights over on this end. Single unit of Chaos Warhounds over there. And then a front line is dirt cheap. A bunch of Chaos Marauders. The Mirror Guard here in the center. Definitely more elite than my army, but nothing too crazy. He does have a single unit of Chaos Warriors Halberds over there. And then 2 Dragon Ogre Shaggets, or Dragon Ogres. One of them the Summoners of Rage. The other one a vanilla unit of Dragon Ogres. And the Bone Giant is immediately trying to punish them a little bit. Landing an okay hit there, though nothing too impressive. In the meantime, we finally do spot Archaon breaking cover here, because he did start in the tree cover, so now he's beelining for me, trying to get in. You can see one more arrow flying out, doing basically nothing, actually, flying over the head of those Summoners of Rage. Fortunately, Loremaster really pushing in here very aggressively and very efficiently with his Warhounds. I'm trying to zone them out with his infantry, trying to get them in his way. We do try to fire out there with the Bone Giant, but unfortunately only clips 1 Chaos Knight, so really some sad stuff, and we're in a bit of a grim position here. Certainly he's going to be able to whittle me down. You can see the Chaos Knights there taking a small volley from the archers, but Archaon is here. He's ready to rumble, and I'm honestly in some ways on a little bit of a timer. I kind of need to get rid of Archaon. I need to get rid of this big stuff before my opponent manages to crush my front line, which he will with his infantry army. So we do engage here on the Chaos Knights. Standard Die is going down from Archaon, but it's not going to help too much against Citra and the 2 Tomb Princes who are just built to slaughter things here. But he does counteract with Flaming Sword of Ruin, which is going to buff him up with fire damage all over the line here. I do counter with Blade of Tra, but it's not going to be enough because he does have all these buffs going down. Archaon's stats are going through the roof. He's beating down this Tomb Prince incredibly quickly. And things are looking really bad. You can see the Summoners of Rage coming in from behind, just getting this meaty rear charge. Things, though, it's not the end game necessarily. We do drop an Arrow's Incantation of Protection, unfortunately being bypassed by Flaming Sword of Ruin here, and the Summoners of Rage, but Archers raining down hell on these poor undead, and these guys just don't have the armor to hold up. You can see the Knights that are rampaging as Curse of Joff goes down, but with all his abilities popped, just look at the damage on Archaon. 870 weapon strength, 52 melee attack. This with Curse of Joff going down, dropping it by 26. He is nuts. This guy is mental, and he's just annihilating my Tomb Prince. And of course, he does have Kindle Flame active, and he just destroys my Tomb Prince in a matter of seconds. But the Knights are routed, so that is a big win for me. In the meantime, some of these Chaos Warhounds not able to bust into the backline. And although these Dragon Ogres are trying their best, they're not really a unit meant to kill Skeleton Archers. So I'm kind of able to just rain death and destruction on these guys. Archeon is bogged down. He's rampaging, which means the Tomb Prince doing an okay job here. My Skeleton Spears are getting a bit of a rap and just bogging this little bit of a disaster here down. Now, Setra does get pounded a whole bunch, and his curse does proc, helping melt this pocket of troops and helping bring Archeon to his knees. You can see with Blade of Sotek on him, he's very, very weak and getting destroyed. And you know, Cetra's not a pushover in melee either. He's not quite as good as Archeon with all the roids, but definitely not amazing, or definitely not the most amazing lord either. And you can see the Dragon Ogres there escorted off the field. Archeon there really pounded and forced to rout, and we're able to sort of bog these guys down and really hold our own. Unfortunately, though, a bit of a misplay. You can see there we do try to use the Bone Giant, but it just whiffs. The Bone Giant really not delivering this game. Really a bit of a letdown. He's got 17 kills, but a lot of that's just against garbage troops. It looks a lot better than it actually is. Fortunately, my archers at this point are getting a bit pounded. You can see this Mirror Guard has pushed through the front line. They are now on top of my back line. Over here, we do try to intercept Archeon, but we get caught by the Knights and by the Summoners of Rage, which is going to be a disaster because we just can't fight our way through here. Cetra doing his very best, but there's magic damage going down, and it's just not going to happen, guys. So we're not able to push through. It is still 50-50, but this is balance of power is a bit misleading because my Lord and Hero here is way out of position. Archeon is coming in for the kill. He does pop a something there, I think, standard die. He's got Foe Seeker. We do counteract with Curse of Joff, trying to keep Cetra alive here, but he's getting pursued by the rampaging enemy troops, and he's not going to be able to eke his way out of there. He starts disintegrating, and that is going to be it for poor Cetra the Imperishable. Now, we do manage to rout off these Dragon Ogres. You can see with the Terror from the Giant, of course, getting some work done. But now with the Mirror Guard in the pits, they are going to start overwhelming us. We do actually get a nice attempt there with the Bone Giant, but it's just not able to connect. The Bone Giant really letting me down this game, not landing the hits that it needed to. The Prince here is going to go down. Probably should have shot this pocket with the Giant, because the Giant could have probably plowed through this blob and probably killed most of these troops. But alas, we did not. The Giant is distracted, looking at other things, gazing off at the distance. He's finally loading a shot, but it's still focused, I do believe. He doesn't even fire there. So, bit of a chump. What can you do? But at this point, it is effectively GG. We have lost our Lord. We don't have any sources of magic. The frontline chaff fight is going to go in my opponent's favor. There's no way that's going to go elsewhere. The shot that you're going to dissipate in a little bit, and with that, it is going to be GG. So, Bone Giant here kind of flailing around, failing. You can see Summoners of Rage finally get their Chain Lightning there at the end, and that was game. So well played to Loremaster of Sotek. I think the match was closer than the stats here show, because the match essentially came down to the hero fight. That was really the deciding factor. Could I crush the Summoners of Rage? Could I crush the Dragon Ogres? Could I get rid of these units? Could I get rid of Archeon? Or could I not? And the answer was I could not. I failed to do that, and so the game ended there. It was obvious that my opponent's infantry was going to win the front line. That wasn't going to change. But as far as some things, I did quite a few things wrong, I would say here. First and foremost, what I probably should have done is played much safer with the Tomb Prince, etc. Loremaster hadn't brought Flaming Skull. He didn't have particularly great tools to really crack my infantry line quickly. The Dragon Ogre's not that good for that. Chaos Knights, yeah, they'll do well in a protracted engagement, but what I could have been doing is I could have been using the debuffs from the Tomb Princes, been hitting units like these Chaos Warriors, been hitting units like the Mirror Guard even, and just melted them with Archer Fire. Won that front line fight, forced my opponent's hand, forced Loremaster's hand with his Cavalry and Archeon. I could have kind of ignored them and forced them to fight more on my terms, and I engaged a bit prematurely, and this is really a habit throughout this tournament for me, was that I had a tendency to just get greedy and make these stupid plays that cost me a lot. And once again, just like that with my engagement with the Lizardmen against General Confusion, where I fed in Horn once prematurely, that happened here as well. I essentially threw away a Tomb Prince, etc., and both of my heroes, etc., I kind of threw them in when I really should have held back, and it cost me the game. Certainly well played, though. I do think this is a pretty cool comp, and this is a matchup I don't play too often, to be quite honest. I know I've done matches of it before, but it's not something I play super often. But pretty cool build. I do think this makes sense. You can obviously, if I'd gone with like a super heavy Tomb Guard build, this might not have been as good. But I do think this is a pretty respectable build, and perhaps that is what you should do. Perhaps like go super heavy on Tomb Guard. I definitely was let down. Bone Giant I didn't like at all. In retrospect, I would probably been better off with like Ushabti Great Bows. That would have probably done a hell of a lot more work for me to just have a unit for Ushabti Great Bows and then like an extra unit of Spears or two, or extra units of Skeleton Warriors on the field. But regardless, I'll play to Loremaster, and off to round number 4, which was a High Elf against Greenskin matchup against Janet on occasion. So this time around we are on Black Forest, and like I said, it is a match of High Elf against Greenskin. And if we were to quickly glance over, we can see the disparity of numbers is pretty great. Now going into this match, one of the things I really don't like is WoW. I think you guys are probably aware of that, the fact that I really hate the way it's currently implemented. But going into this, I knew that there was a few ways I could do this. It was either going to try to pick Janet apart with a Cav build, or I was going to try to just go full ham with a melee build. Just bring a bunch of sword masters essentially, rely on Alariel getting her Arcane Dawn Forging off, and stomping in the melee department. But the problem is, going full chub on the melee has chances of backfiring. If your opponent goes with a very heavy missile play or a very heavy cavalry play, which, believe it or not, is possible for Greenskins. They can do these very asymmetric builds with goblins and disruptive units and artillery. There's just so many weird things you can do with Greenskins that people really don't anticipate, but a lot of the better players do. And I knew I was going against someone who's probably good chance better than me with Janet here. So I figured it's probably not smart to go with something that's very one-dimensional, just looking to win a slugfest of that sort against a flexible army like Greenskins. So what I did was I did bring Alariel. She is here with Earthblood. She does have False Protection. She does have her Star of Avalorn. It is important to note that Earthblood has been reworked on her. It used to only cost 4 Winds of Magic when you brought certain items. Now it still costs 6 no matter what you do. But of course she's still a very potent lord. She still does have, of course, Arcane Dawn Forging to reset cooldowns, just crazy buffs to keep troops alive, and she's not a pushover in melee either. For the rest of the build, frontline of spears, including the Signs of Mathlon. Not a good comp, honestly, against the Greenskins, but they're there to hold. They're not there to win me anything. They're there to bog down Janet's troops, buy me some time, let units like my Cav here do the work. And the Cav force is big. We've got a single unit of archers here because I had some points left over. Not quite enough to get me another unit of spears. Dragon Princes on one end, Fireborn on the other. 2 units of Leader Universe here in the woods, one of which is the Heralds of the Wind Regiment of Renown. I actually really like these guys for their high melee stats and mobility. And then 2 nobles mounted on chariots to melt down any potential Black Orc play. So what does Janet do? Well, he doesn't bring Black Orcs, so those guys are kind of useless in that sense. But he brought with a very wide and in many ways surprising build. So he brought Wurtzag, which actually isn't surprising. Wurtzag's a very common and very competitive pick. If there's one thing that's predictable about Greenskins, it's generally Wurtzag. You're almost always going to see him. But he brought Brainbursta, he brought Here We Go, and he did bring the Foot of Cork. Surprisingly, no Fists of Gork, which I think is a really solid choice, but you can definitely make this sort of thing work. He's got Bonewood Staff, the Mini-Wah, essentially, Squiggly Beast, Wurtzag's Revenge for that increased miscast chance. Definitely brutal on Alariel, who's going to be overcasting a bunch, Wah, and of course Effigy of the Git. Otherwise, he does have a front line of mixed of Orc Big Guns as well as Savage Orcs, very brutal infantry that against squishier High Elf troops will do great. And honestly, even against, say, White Lions still do pretty well. If you go super elite, well, they're not too much of a loss. There's still a lot of firepower here. He's got multiple Goblin Archers, he's got a Darusty Heirs, as well as a Hammer of Gork to really lay the smackdown if I'd brought an elite troop line. So this is actually a cool balance. The infantry is there to beat the chaff. This firepower is there to beat the elites. On the flanks, a bunch of nasty Skulkers with their smoke bombs to snare me, a whole bunch of Force Goblin Spider Riders, 3 units of them to slow me down with their poison. It's actually 4 units of nasty Skulkers, so pretty nuts there. And then 2 Goblin Big Bosses, which used to be kind of a meta thing back in the day, but no longer. You don't see this very often. But they're a very potent Goon Squad type unit. One here with poison, of course mounted on a spider, the other on a wolf for extra mobility, but both very, very potent. Definitely a lot better, I think, than people give them credit for, though not something you see very often. But regardless, I'm going to be pushing it immediately. I don't want to get pounded by artillery, even though I've got a lot of chaff that I don't care about too much. And we're pushing it immediately. You can see Alariel here getting cheeky, trying to push in. You can see my Lyrian Reavers looking to swing around the flank and get into the cookie jar, get into that back line. Because I knew, even without seeing the Rusty Airs, that there's probably some sneaky stabbing going around somewhere. And you can see Alariel here trying to pull some crazy jukes, but not quite working out. But I really wanted to get that Arcane Dawn Forging on Wurtzag to reset the cooldowns, and to put some early damage on my opponent's lord to make Janet play a little bit more cautiously with Wurtzag, to teach him a lesson. Now over here, the Orc Big Guns did push out a little bit, getting a little greedy perhaps, and so we can countercharge them with the Nobles. You can see they're just piling through, like I've done my video on heroic chariots, they are amazing at killing entire models. And you can see the orc brigands have already lost 8 models there, and the chariots just keep going. They just don't give a darn. They're just going to keep running amok. And of course, Ilaria has crazy heals. Meantime, over here, the Force Goblin Spider Eyes diving into the Lyrian Reavers, but the Heralds of the Wind are on station to get a sweeping side charge. And over here, the Fireborn do dive into the nasty Skulkers, though a bit of a disaster. Savage Orc boys here pushing in from behind, and the Fireborn have been snared by smoke bombs, so they're just getting wrecked. And I think they got hit by Warsag's Effigy of the Git, so they're just in a terrible spot. Actually, yeah, it looks like it's Effigy of the Git. They're just destroying them. It's really some rough stuff. Perhaps the foot of Hammer of Gork there doing some work. But things not looking as peachy keen as I would like. These spears over here are kind of doing nothing, and these Savage Orcs are just sitting there watching. In the meantime, these Dragon Princes are coming in from the flank full chub. You can see the archers pounding away, but at the same time, my opponent is able to get in on my nobles and start whacking away. And of course, Wartsag is absolutely a beast. He does have Here We Go, even though he doesn't have Wah. And this noble is just dying horribly. It's a pretty painful death here in the pits. Fortunately, the other noble does have martial prowess still up and running, and he's helping hold the line here. But this noble is just in full retreat here. We do pop our Star of Avalorn, trying to keep things up and running, and these spears here are going to be pulled out of reserve to get in there. Taking over, looking look at the battlefield, you can see it's actually decisively in Janet's favor at this point. He does have, he's basically wrecked one of my nobles, who I was really counting on to do a lot of work against this infantry because I lost track of him. He's almost wrecked my Fireborn, which is nuts, and he's actually got Warsag still running amok here. We are going to get on him with Lariel, which is nice, and she's going to do some damage, but it's a bad spot, guys. These Dragon Princes losing HP left and right. These spears still uncommitted, which I really should have done a while ago. But you know what? With the heals from Lariel, this noble is recovering a little bit. This noble over here is still very healthy and able to plow through and go after some of these squishier troops. And the Lyrian Reavers, of course, are Lyrian Reavers. They're still very good in melee. We're able to get rid of this Hammer of Gork, pulverize some of those nasty Skulkers, and teach these filthy Greenskins a lesson. Wah finally does go off, which is definitely nifty for Janet, and it's going to be brutal for me. This noble here getting pulverized, but Dragon Princes did get in on the Goblin Archers. They're going to start mulching them pretty nastily, and when push comes to shove, the High Elves, of course, are all very good in melee, so we're going to sweep in once again with the Lyrian Reavers, doing a bunch of work to the Rusty Airs and these troops. Unfortunately, this is going to cost me this unit of Lyrian Reavers. They do get snared by that smoke bomb, but the Heralds of the Wind still alive and good. So we sacrifice a unit here to bog down this shooting and buy ourselves some time. In the meantime, this noble here is still around kicking on 800 HP, and our archers keep firing. This has been, I think, a mistake on Janet's part. He committed a savagery to fight my spears, but they really need to be here shutting down these archers who've been getting way too much value. Meantime, you can see some of these orc brigands actually out, and we're able to get in on these goblin archers. You can see Lariel doing so much work. Like I said, she's not a pushover, and she's able to get in on this goblin big boss with the Lyrian Reavers and start taking him to Pound Town, because these guys, the Heralds of the Wind, are just brutal. These guys are nasty in melee. They got 38, 46, just no pushovers, and they're wrecking this guy. In the meantime, though, this pocket, they're collapsing, so it's a constant back and forth. The bounce of power is still slightly in Janet's favor, even at this stage of the game. But at this point, I do feel slightly more confident. The Signs of Mathlin are pushing through. Over here, my Dragon Prince is crushing through unit after unit of Greenskins. And as we're able to force off these orc big guns, and my archers still online, things are looking up. Janet's troops over here, way out of position. These orc big guns too far away. These savage orcs too far away to do much. Over here, it's a pit fight. The Lyrian Reavers are getting pounded, but we are getting rid of the Goblin big bosses. The Fireborn here sacrificing themselves, throwing themselves into the fray just to get rid of these Goblin archers. The poor noble here also dying for the cause, but another Arcane Unforging is going down a Warsag. I'm just dedicating myself to sniping him with Lariel at this point. And so we're going to give him the business. We're going to teach him a lesson about what not to do. You can see the noble here getting pulverized. Lariel here still very much around kicking. The noble, of course, is not bad in a grind, which is something people I think don't realize sometimes. But nobles are surprisingly nasty in a grind in the chariot because they kill models on every swing. And you can see these savage orcs here getting mulched, getting peppered down by archer fire. And these guys still around kicking. They're on two ammo left, but at this point, even though they get caught by the orc brigands, it's too little, too late. Lariel here is coming in for the cookie, for the snack that Warsag is at this point. You can see he's running for dear life. The Hog Lord trying to get away, but the pigeon is mad. She does get hit by a smoke bomb though, so definitely a nice save there from Janet. But at the bounce of power at this point, swinging decisively in the the High Elf's favor, and things are definitely looking up at this point. You can see the last two Fireborn here committing to the charge, tying down these nasty Skulkers in these units for the Heralds of the Wind to do some work. The Lariel, the Radiant here, diving in on the Goblin Big Boss, doing some major work there. And the Noble here just still running amok and doing immense amounts of work as we do get some constant support. And I'm not entirely sure what this was going on. Here we go from Warsag, but the leadership is really letting the Greenskins down at this point. Warsag can't come in there to deliver any leadership buffs. the Goblin big bosses are failing. The Nasty Skulkers are getting overwhelmed. They don't have good leadership overall, so that's why they rout so easily. And I've still got all these spears rallying on the periphery. And honestly, with the Lariel spell spam, you can actually heal up a decent amount globally. So we're coming back. Lariel here still focusing on Wordsack, still not able to quite snare him, but these Dragon Princes up to 185 kills, crushing these Nasty Skulkers underfoot. At this point, it is going to be a rout. You can see Effigy the Git does go down to Lariel, but full shatter on these Nasty Skulkers. Lariel still has a lot of HP, so Effigy the Git isn't going to finish her off or anything. It's not going to be the end of the world. And the Illyrian Reavers, the Heralds of the Wind, actually chasing after Wordsack. They're just so fast. They got 105 speed. He's not going to be able to get away. You can see his leadership is very low. He's trying to rally, but we're actually getting on him. He has very bad melee defense, so when he's on retreat, he's just absolute easy pickings. And over here, the Noble diving in for the last few sort of attacks on these Savage Rooks, but at this point, it's basically GG. There just isn't enough left for Janet to win the day. Wordsack is basically just poor Hoglord here, running for dear life. At this point, Janet does decide to GG out, because with some cycle charging, the Noble Chariot and the Signs of Mathlin and all those units would have been brutal. So, a great game, real, in my opinion. For me, it was a real nail biter, just going back and forth, right down to the wire. I think ultimately what it came down to was some nasty Lord sniping for me. I think, as far as my build goes, I think I made huge misplays with my nobles, with losing track of them. There was a lot of micro for me. I had a unit of fast cav, I had 2 separate units of heavy cav, and then the nobles, and then a Lariel, who all had to be doing things, and that's ignoring the infantry, basically considering them a throwaway, but they weren't. I had to micro them. So there was a lot of micro for me, and so I lost track of one of the nobles, and he got dumpstered for honestly little gain. In a matchup like this, he had huge potential, but he didn't deliver, and the unsupported use of my nobles really cost me pretty badly this game. On the flip side, though, the Lord sniping with Lariel worked great. One of the Dragon Princes just mulched through these troops. This is kind of an ideal matchup in some ways for Dragon Princes, because there's very little that can contest them. Greenskin Cav is not a real threat. Greenskin Infantry, well, Black Orcs are a nasty threat, but everything else is pretty squishy and pretty soft and easy to run over, so they're pretty brutal. Illyrian Reavers, the Heralds of the Wind, 78 kills. They're not a bad unit in this matchup. I definitely think they can perform really well. They can fight off annoying harass with minimal casualties. They can interdict your opponent's backlines and do some good work that way. For Janet's build, I do think it's cool to see the Gabo Goon Squad hitting the field once again. It's a bit of a rare sight. I think it's a cool concept of a build here, because you've got it's reordered from what you normally see. Normally you'll see Black Orcs there to crack the elites, and then to deal with the sort of squishy stuff, it's going to be sort of a Haggard, or to deal with kiting and that sort of stuff. You'll have this Haggard mix of like Orc Boar by big guns and NASA and like, I don't know, Nasty Skulkers are pretty common no matter what, but you know, it tends to be a bit different, I think, comp-wise. And I think this slightly wider front line here, while relying on shooting and Nasty Skulker steal with elites, was pretty cool. And Wordsack, I suppose, with like Foot of Gork and stuff. If I had a comment, I think the problem was that Wordsack just got sniped, and Lariel was doing a great job there. But I think definitely the low leadership proved a big issue against all these Dragon Princes, and the lack of mobility was, I think, a slight problem. Now the Force Goblin Spider Riders can be okay, but they simply can't outfight Illyrian Reavers, and Jen didn't really have good counters, I think, to Dragon Princes. Certainly he can snare them with Nasty Skulkers, but in extended engagement, with me compromising basically his entire backline, you run out of smoke bombs, and eventually you're going to get breaches, and you're not going to be able to shut those. You don't have the mobility to really threaten something like Dragon Princes, because they'll run over your Nasty Skulkers. I was making sure to charge Nasty Skulkers rather than simply running into them. That's very important when you're using heavy cav against Skulkers, to make sure you get the charge off, because even if they snare you, you mulch them, get them out of the way, and they're done. And so I think that was a little bit of a problem. I think a unit of heavy cav or something with proper damage output would have been useful here. But regardless, very well played to Janet. Very tight match. It came right down to the wire. And friggin' Fireborn got wiped to a man. Illyrian Reavers almost wiped to a man. A Noble killed. Just nuts. But very well played. Very tight match. And yeah, I had a lot of fun. There's still one more game left to go, which I'll be casting tomorrow. But I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining and hopefully fun to watch. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And if you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, as usual, don't hesitate to post them, and I'll be sure to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.